Most guitarists don't actually know what practicing means, and that's probably why they're not making the improvements that they could be. They think they're practicing, but in reality they're just wasting a bunch of time on the instrument. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what practice looks like based on 7 clear behaviors that great guitarists do every time they practice with the instrument. The best thing is that if you ever feel stuck or directionless, you can start doing any of these 7 things immediately to help you get back on track. So I've been playing guitar consistently for around 12 years at this point. Along the way, I've earned a music degree, I've spent years teaching students at every kind of skill level, and now I'm specializing in helping intermediate guitarists break out the pentatonic boxes and start improvising melodically through chord changes. The point is, I've learned a lot from touring professionals, I've coached beginners, and I've watched a lot of talented guitarists get stuck. And I started noticing a pattern, right? Everyone talks about practicing, but hardly anyone has a clear idea on what that word actually means. Everyone has a different definition going on in their own head. Most guitarists think practicing just means repeating something over and over again until it sounds better. And yes, repetition does matter, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. So I thought it would be a good idea to flip things on its head. Instead of thinking about what's the best practice exercise, I started asking myself, what behaviors have I observed from the guitarist who makes the most progress when they practice? I started thinking, if someone was actually practicing, what behaviors would I observe them doing? So this question has led me to create what I'm calling the player's framework for this video. I'm going over 7 observable behaviors that define real effective practice. If you start doing these 7 things consistently, practicing the guitar will become so much less confusing and you'll save yourself from wasting a lot of precious time. So we can break down real practice into 7 clear behaviors. I'm going to walk you through each one, what it looks like and why it actually matters. And then at the end, I'm going to show you what happens when you start combining all of them together to make some consistent progress. Step 1, plan your session. Imagine you wanted to go on vacation, but you had no idea where you were going. You didn't pick a location, you didn't book a place, and you didn't even plan a route. You'd probably spend the whole time just traveling, but never actually getting anywhere where you can just relax and start enjoying yourself. That's exactly what practice looks like without a clear goal. If you don't know what you're aiming for, you're never going to know if you actually hit the target. Most guitarists, they sit down and they say they're going to work on something vague, like, I want to get better at soloing, right? That's something everyone wants to do, right? But that's not really a clear destination. You need to be more specific. The more specific your goal is, the faster you're going to improve. Because saying something like, I want to get better at soloing, could mean 10 different things. That could mean I need to work on my phrasing. That could mean I need to work on my articulation of notes and how I kind of bend into notes or do hammer-ons and pull-ups. That could mean finger coordination of I need to make sure that when I pick, my fretting hand is kind of coordinated with it. That could also mean things like I need to work on practicing targeting chord tones, right? There's 1,000 different things you could work on to get better at soloing. Real practice happens when you can clearly define your goal by saying something specific like, I'm working on playing major scale shapes in 3 different positions today, right? The clearer your goal is, the faster you are going to progress, because without a target, you're just drifting, and with a plan, you're actually improving. So practice behavior number 1 is having a clear plan, because practice without direction leads to slow or no progress. Step 2, learn from your mistakes. Imagine you were trying to fix a leaky pipe, but instead of sealing that leak, you just let the water keep spilling out and leaking through, and you hoped that it would just eventually fix itself. That sounds stupid, right? Well, that's exactly what most guitarists do when they make a mistake on the instrument. They just keep playing and hoping that it magically disappears. Well, this is one of the worst habits that we build as players. Playing through mistakes instead of actually learning from them. Think about the last time you practiced a new scale shape or you tried to improvise something. At some point you probably hit a wrong note, or your fingers kind of got tied up, or the timing might have felt just slightly off. Most players, they just shrug this off and they just keep going. But if you don't stop and figure out why that mistake happened, you're doomed to repeat it over and over again. Real progress happens when you pause, isolate a problem, and fix it, even if it's just like one small tiny problem in a phrase. For example, when I'm improvising with a looper, I really like practicing over chord progressions and trying to solo over them with a looper pedal. If I mess up a lick, I don't just move on, right? I stop, I try and play that lick again until I can kind of get it right. And if it's still not right, I stop the loop entirely, I slow things down, and I figure out exactly which part of that phrase is tripping me up, and then I work on that. This process usually takes me around like 2 or 3 minutes for each kind of lick, but once I get it down, it's a permanent improvement that I have in my playing. Usually the problems in your playing aren't one massive thing holding you back, it's a collection of tiny little mistakes that you don't even realize you're making. So practice behavior number 2 is stopping and isolating and identifying your mistakes, because you stop mindless playing and start practicing with purpose when you can identify the mistakes that you're making. Step number 3, act with intention. Once you've identified a mistake, the next step is to actually try and fix it. And that means repetition, and not just any kind of repetition, it has to be deliberate and effective repetition. So this brings us to behavior number 3, and that's acting with intention. Repetition doesn't make perfect. People think that just doing something over and over and over again means that it's going to eventually click. That's not true. Repetition does not make perfect, it makes permanent. And that means that if you repeat something with sloppy technique or no awareness, you're just burning bad habits into your brain and your muscle memory. After you've isolated a mistake, the way you fix it is by repeating the correct version with intention. This means you're not just kind of looping and repeating the same phrase just for the sake of it, just to feel like you're putting in time and just to feel like you're practicing, right? You need to pay close attention and you need to make small adjustments every time you play a phrase. So for example, let's say you're working on a tricky phrase that keeps falling apart when you try to improvise or something like that. Maybe you're learning a song or someone's solo and you can't really play that one phrase correctly. Don't just run it over 50 times hoping that it's going to click. Run it 5 times really, really carefully. And after each time that you've kind of run through it, you've practiced it, ask yourself, did that feel clean? Were my fingers relaxed? Was I playing in time? Was I applying too much pressure to the fretboard? Did my hands kind of ache? And little things like that, right? Pay close attention. This kind of focused repetition is what rewires your brain and builds real control on the fretboard. It's not about repeating something more and doing as many reps as possible. It's about repeating with more awareness. So practice behavior, repeating with intention, because repetition is how your brain encodes a skill, right? So make sure that every single repetition counts. So step number 4, you need to slow things down. Eventually, when you start practicing something, you're going to find yourself at a point where you find it really difficult to kind of repeat a lick or like learn a kind of part or like a scale shape at a certain speed. It feels like you're just bashing your head against a brick wall. We've all been there at some point when we're trying to learn something that's difficult. And honestly, the reason this happens is because your brain is overwhelmed. And the solution is really, really simple. It just takes a bit of humility. What you need to do is slow things down. Slowing things down is not a sign of weakness, right? This is a bad habit we have as guitarists. For some reason, we think that when we're practicing, speed is really, really impressive. Whenever I have a new student and I ask them to play like a scale shape they might know for me, they usually try and play it as fast as possible to prove that they know it really, really well. Well, the thing is, if you don't know how to play something perfectly at a slow speed, you actually don't know how to do it at a fast speed. When you slow a phrase down intentionally, your brain has enough time to kind of process each individual movement. Your fingers kind of stay relaxed and you stop reinforcing those sloppy bad habits. A lot of intermediate players, they try and power through difficult parts at full speed, but that just kind of cements their bad habits and their mistakes. What I like to do is slow things down until it's too easy. I want to find a baseline tempo in which I can play a phrase or a scale shape perfectly without any mistakes. Only once I've got that baseline slow tempo where I can play something perfectly, only then will I start increasing the speed, right? So remember, the goal isn't to play fast, it's to play clean. Speed comes after you have that clean playing and that control. So practice behavior number 4, slow things down. You need to slow things down because slower practice builds better habits and it prevents you from making mistakes that are going to hold you back for a long time. Step number 5, external feedback. Have you ever played a solo that kind of felt incredible to play at the moment? You might have felt like a guitar god as you were kind of like ripping that solo, but when you listen back to it, you kind of cringe a little bit. Doesn't really meet up with your expectations. Or maybe the opposite happened. You thought you played something that sounded kind of terrible, but when you listen back to it later, you're actually kind of surprised that it's better than you thought it was, right? The problem is it's really hard to be objective in the moment when you're the one playing. When you're so focused on hitting the right notes, keeping in time, and staying expressive, your brain is just too busy to accurately evaluate what's going on in that moment. And this is one of the biggest things that self-taught guitarists struggle with. They often go years without ever getting clear external feedback. They're stuck in their own head, they're guessing what's working, and they're kind of reinforcing bad habits and wondering why they aren't progressing, right? That's exactly why external feedback is so essential. It gives you perspective that you can't get by yourself. So feedback can come in kind of many different forms. You can get the feedback from listening to yourself play along to a metronome, right? If you hear that you're out of time from the click, that's feedback that tells you you have something that you need to work on. You can get feedback from playing along with a backing track. So for example, if you use your ears and listen to whether you're actually in key or not, that's feedback telling you if you're playing the right notes. You can also get feedback by listening to a recording of yourself, right? That tells you the truth of what your playing really sounds like to another type of listener. But honestly, the best, most valuable kind of feedback comes from another guitarist, someone who's ideally already where you want to be and has achieved the goals that you're looking to achieve. They can hear things that you're blind to. They can show you the gap between what you think you're doing and what's actually coming out of the instrument. And again, the ability to give feedback is something that YouTube videos unfortunately will never be able to deliver. And it's probably the best reason to go out and find a teacher is to get feedback on what you're actually doing. So practice behavior number 5, that's seeking external feedback, because self-assessment is only ever going to take you so far. No one can get better in isolation. Step 6, regular time commitment. The first step to getting good at anything is getting consistent. You don't always have to be motivated, you don't always have to be inspired to play, but you do have to play consistently. Most guitarists wait until they just feel like practicing, right? But if you only practice when it's convenient, you're going to stay stuck at a certain level for years. Imagine that you have to take care of like a household plant, right? You can't just water the plant once a month and expect it to thrive, right? It's the small, steady, consistent attention that makes things grow. And the guitar works the exact same way. You don't need to do massive sessions, you just need small, regular ones, right? I've noticed that the guitarist who can consistently put in 15 minutes, like 5 times a week, will make far more progress than the guitarist who puts in an hour once a week on a weekend. Some days you're going to feel like you're on fire and you're on a roll and practice is going to feel great. Other days it's going to feel like a chore and it's going to feel like a lot of effort. But if you keep showing up, your progress is going to compound over time, and you'll kind of be blown away by how far you'll come by consistently practicing. So behavior number 6, that's committing to regular practice time, because consistency is what makes your playing grow, even if you can't see it immediately right away. Step number 7, scan for progress, because what doesn't get measured can't be improved. Practicing without any kind of reflection upon your improvements is like cooking a meal without ever tasting the dish along the process. You're putting in all this effort, but you have no idea if it's actually working or not. It could be something like really, really simple, like just keeping a practice notebook of just writing down a couple thoughts every time you finish a practice session. Keep it simple, right? You don't need to overcomplicate it. Ask yourself questions like, what's improving? What's still kind of a bit messy? Maybe what needs some more attention in my next practice session, right? It could also be something simple like reviewing a recording of your playing. I like to kind of record myself playing every couple of months, and then in the future I'll go back to that recording and I'll ask myself questions about my playing and how it's improved. Like, you might notice that like maybe your phrasing has improved quite significantly over that period of time, but maybe you still need to work upon your timing a bit as well. And here's the thing, right? The guitar is a never-ending game. There's no finish line. There's no kind of completion point. Even the greatest guitarists in the world, they're still chasing something to improve. They're still slightly unsatisfied about at least something in their playing. And that's why scanning for progress is so important, because it gives you proof that you're actually growing. It helps you feel rewarded from the time you're putting into the instrument. So practice isn't always just about getting better. It's about understanding and knowing that you're getting better as well. And that's what keeps you motivated to keep practicing over the long run, right? So practice behavior number 7, that's scanning for progress. Because the guitarists who improve the most and the fastest are the ones who pay attention to what's actually changing. Now here's the thing, right? Even if you're just doing one of these behaviors, you're already technically practicing. You're already ahead of most players who just kind of pick up the instrument and just kind of work through the motions without even really thinking about what they're doing. But imagine what your practice would look like if you started doing all 7 at the same time consistently. You planned your session, you learned from your mistakes, you slowed things down for control, you got external feedback, you regularly showed up to practice, and you scanned for your progress that you're making in your practice sessions, right? That's not just practice, that's progress with genuine purpose. That's how you get more from every minute that you put into the guitar and build skills that actually stick. So this is a powerful framework that doesn't apply to like one kind of practice technique. You can use it to learn anything on the guitar. Like, let's say you're trying to work on a new scale position across the fretboard, or like you're working on learning a new song, or like some more chord shapes, or you're practicing like just working on your improvisation or something like that. Whenever you're trying to learn something new, or whenever your practice feels kind of like stale or a bit directionless, come back to this video and use it as a reference. Use it to kind of like reset yourself and give yourself a reminder of what real practice kind of looks like. Stick to these behaviors and stack as many as you can as possible. Stick with them and you'll get results that most guitarists never kind of get through the instrument. Now you've got a practice framework, and even if you start using just a few of these behaviors, you're going to see some progress. But if you're an intermediate guitarist who's stuck in the pentatonic boxes and you want to start actually playing through the chord changes, and you want a step-by-step system that shows you exactly how to get there and exactly what exercises you need to practice, and a system that gives you feedback to keep you on track, then I want to invite you to watch the free video on my website. You can click the link in the description to watch it, or if you're on TV at the moment, grab your phone and head to howiGotGoodAtGuitar.com. This video explains how I help guitarists go from just guessing around scale shapes to improvising creatively with triads, targeting chord tones in every pentatonic box, and actually understanding what you're doing on the fretboard. From there, if that clicks with you, you can book a free assessment call with me. Worst case scenario, on that call you're going to get some clarity on what's holding you back and how to progress. Best case scenario, you're going to join the program and become my next success story, just like Cameron, who used to only understand how to noodle around with pentatonic shapes, and now he's gigging and soloing with confidence and making music that actually excites him. And if you're not quite ready to leave YouTube yet and head to my website, that's alright, that's perfectly fine. I've linked another video of mine right here that digs deeper into playing through the chord changes, and it's helped a lot of guitarists get unstuck and progress with the instrument. So you can click on that video right here to watch that one next.